Hello there. As you can probably see from what I'm looking at, I am going to be reacting to MrHulthen, I'm not sure if I said that correctly, and his video on the Mass Effect time travel theory. Now, I don't necessarily like this theory. I know he doesn't necessarily agree with it as well, but I just wanted to use his video to sort of talk about my feelings on this, because I really dislike a lot of people from just making this theory, because it feels so out of line of what Mass Effect is or what it should be, you know? It feels like it's such a out of left field, and I'll explain more as we get through the video. So, let's begin.
These are four words that normally don't mix together very well, but for some reason this idea pops up fairly often across the internet, and I often get asked on this channel whether I think that the next Mass Effect game will incorporate some form of time travel. How's it going, everybody? MrHulthen here, and today I want to dive into this fairly chaotic topic on whether time travel could even work in the Mass Effect universe, and whether we'll see a form of time travel plot in the next Mass Effect game. But before I start, I just want to make it very clear that this is just speculation, as is always the case with these types of videos.
So I do want to say that even though it is just speculation, it does sort of, how do you say, speak on a thought process that a lot of fans seem to have, which I'll get to in the video, but a lot of it involves in trying to avoid Andromeda, which I'll talk about.
If you do enjoy this type of stuff, then remember to click on that big red subscribe button. And without further ado, let's dive into this time travel rabbit hole. First, let's look at how time travel could even be possible in the Mass Effect universe. And well, if you're like me, you're probably thinking what I'm thinking. The mass relays would definitely be the most obvious technology lying around that could open the path to time travel. We know that the relays manipulate space-time to create mass-free corridors between each other, which allows for ships to travel at speeds far greater than light speed. Now, I'm not going to pretend to know a lot about relativity, but from what I understand, anything that travels past light speed would essentially break the laws of physics and travel back in time. But because of the fictional material called Element Zero, traveling at relativistic speeds is possible because of how EZO creates a space-time bubble around itself and exposed to a positive or negative electrical charge. So you see, all the technology in Mass Effect is mostly possible due to Element Zero, and this is why EZO is by far the most valuable material in the galaxy. So I think the key to traveling back in time would have to surround the manipulation of Element Zero. But how? Well, I'm not a physicist, but because Element Zero is a fictional element, there are probably ways you can write a pretty good explanation to why EZO would allow for time travel, whether that be using EZO for special time travel mass relays or some other high-tech device. Now, secondly, and probably most importantly, we of course have to ask why time travel would be introduced in the first place. And well, there may be several reasons for this. The most obvious reason for traveling back in time that comes to mind would be to stop the Reapers before the Reaper War takes place, or perhaps even to a point during the war.
Now, I just want to also say from my why I think a lot of people are suggesting this, and this is mostly so as to play as Shepard again. A lot of the ways the next Mass Effect game can come about are essentially, from the teaser we get, kind of contradicts this, but we immediately pick up right after and we see Shepard in the Destroy canon ending, and we go from there. Or we play Shepard in some sort of convoluted manner, like they were put into cryostasis, or they were cloned, or some other ridiculous theory like that. And a lot of these theories that are very implausible are made because a lot of people want to play as Shepard again, even if it is a very irrational thing, and trying to do it will make no sense and break some like lore narrative consistency or anything like that. And that's what I really want to talk about, but let's get the rest of this theory.
That was key to turning the tide. You see, the Reapers' invasion of the Milky Way was cataclysmic in proportion, and the amount of individuals that died as a direct cause of the Reapers was definitely up in several billions. Several homeworlds are probably not even habitable anymore, just because of how much the Reapers bombarded most inhabited planets. I mean, just look at Earth in Mass Effect 3. So in essence, traveling back in time to stop the Reaper War from happening in the first place is as good a reason as any. But wait, the Reapers weren't just responsible for harvesting the current galactic cycle, as they also harvested countless civilizations every 50,000 years up until Mass Effect 3, meaning that the total loss of life would be in the trillions, which is just a mind-numbing number when you think about
Probably
it.
quadrillions, but hey, you know, not.
What I'm trying to say here is, why stop at the current cycle? What if we traveled all the way back to the creation of the Catalyst by the Leviathans? How many lives could have been saved then? Stuff like this could open up some really insane storylines, like fighting to stop the creation of the Catalyst and the first harvest of the Milky Way. But this is also where we encounter our first real problem. As per traditional stories involving time travel, what happens after halting the creation of the Reapers would seem to be a really hard part to explain, because this could open up the storyline to almost an infinite number of possibilities. But you see, I might have the solution. By preventing the creation of the Catalyst, the Leviathan would still be the galactic overlords overseeing every other species in the galaxy. And because the Catalyst was created to find a solution to synthetics always warring with organics, perhaps a race of AI would rise to do exactly what the Catalyst and the Reapers were trying to prevent: the complete annihilation of all organic life in the galaxy, essentially giving way to something even worse than the Reapers. So when you think about it, the outcome of the plot would essentially result in us either stopping this new race of AI that starts killing everything, or going back in time again at the end of the game to correct the timeline by letting the Catalyst be created again. Almost like a perfect loop. You undo your mistake. But as much as a story like this is possible in my opinion, this is not the problem that a lot of fans are trying to solve. No. You see, what I've found...
Now, just before we get to it, I do want to establish this. So as he explained the theory and whatnot, I don't think Mass Effect even has time travel as a possibility, not saying that it is impossible or you can't logically use the extent of mass relays to make time travel happen, but that it was never used before. Mass Effect is not a time travel story. It didn't have time travel in the beginning. It didn't even hint that time travel was possible. You had to like dig in through Mass Relay and Mass Effect lore, the effect that Element Zero has, and to actually even propose this theory. Again, this theory is very bunk. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, and it wouldn't make sense to add time travel into the new game for apparently no reason. Because there are a lot of better ways to actually do this than just, oh yeah, we have time travel now, apparently.
Notice that most of the time, some of you guys are trying to find a way to connect the storyline of the Mass Effect trilogy to Mass Effect Andromeda. In other words, having Shepard and the Normandy squad meet up with Ryder and the Tempest crew. Now, just to remind everyone, the story that takes place in Andromeda is placed roughly 600 years after Mass Effect 3, meaning that logically speaking, it's quite literally impossible for Ryder and the Tempest crew to somehow meet up with Shepard and company, since by the time the arcs arrive in
I also agree that this sort of theory, trying to connect Andromeda and the Milky Way together, is very bogus. There are other ways to connect Andromeda and the Milky Way together than just, oh yeah, we should use time travel. Such as, for example, the Jordan. The Jordan from Mass Effect Andromeda seem to be one of the more advanced species in the entirety of the Mass Effect lore, either on par with the Reapers or at least a little below, and so it wouldn't be much of a stretch to imagine them trying to make a mass relay, it working and it cutting down on the time to actually connect the two galaxies. Because again, with the amount of technological advancement we see in the game, we can sort of extrapolate from that a lot more that they can do, and that includes building mass relays, especially because the mass relays are inherently limited by the Reapers, because the Reapers didn't want the civilizations to just have access to all over. What limits a lot of the Mass Effect relays is the fact that the Reapers emplaced those limits.
Andromeda, Shepard and most of the Normandy crew would be long dead. Even if Ryder and the Tempest crew somehow managed to instantly travel back to the Milky Way through a special mass relay, it would still be 600 years too late. So, in order to solve this and not rely on putting Shepard and the crew in cryostasis, you would have to introduce time travel. So, how would you write a story about this that still makes sense?
Which also, just to say that, it still shows that a lot of people want to hang on to Shepard for some reason, even though it's detrimental. There's no reason to hang on to Shepard. There's no logic to it, because why hang on to Shepard? And it's literally just because they want to. It's what they think Mass Effect is, and it's very limiting to think that Mass Effect begins and ends with Shepard, because Mass Effect is a lot more than just that. Yet a lot of people seem like they just think it is just that, which to me is very odd. And yeah, I just don't like it.
Well, as I mentioned before, it is entirely possible that this relay we see being built from the official M7-day footage is actually located in the Andromeda galaxy. Now, if this is a specialized mass relay that can create massless corridors on its own without a receiving mass relay on the other end, then the Tempest crew could logically be zipped back into the Milky Way almost instantaneously, where they then could meet up with Liara and perhaps some of the other trilogy characters that are still alive. Now, as you may have noticed, I have been thinking about this for a while, and the only way I can see this working is the following. The story would have to surround Liara or someone else, possibly even the Geth, having researched time travel and possibly coming up with a solution, whereby then Ryder and the Tempest crew get sent back in time to either assist Shepard in stopping the Reapers or bringing Shepard and the Normandy crew to the future timeline to help stop a new threat. The problem with a plot like this, however, is that besides creating a bunch of plot holes, the story runs the risk of becoming uninspired and lazy, as bringing Shepard to the future would essentially doom the galaxy to be harvested by the Reapers, and even if Ryder just borrows Shepard and returns the commander to the original timeline at a later point, it would just feel like a literal copy of Avengers Endgame. Having Ryder assist Shepard during the Reaper War could be
which again shows a lot of the things that a lot of people just want to hang on and cling on to Shepard for what seemingly is destructive reasons. They're going to essentially say, damn the narrative consequence, damn the lore consequences, damn literally everything that Mass Effect is about, and just have Shepard back. And that to me is just so dumb. I really don't get this obsession with Shepard and this continuously, how do you say, desire for Shepard just to be the main face of everything. For me, I don't think Mass Effect should be that. I don't think Mass Effect should just be about Commander Shepard forever, because that's inherently limiting. Because Mass Effect can do more than just that. It's about more than just Shepard. And to me, it's strange how theories like this come about and are taken seriously. Obviously, MrHulthen is not taking this too seriously, as he says they're going to create a lot of plot holes and whatnot, but a lot of other people in the Mass Effect community taking this very seriously, because it's strange to me how people just want Shepard back no matter what, and I just don't like it. It feels very infuriating to me to see people want bad stories because they don't care as long as their favorite part is there. And to me, I have issues with all of the games, Mass Effect 1, 2, 3, and Andromeda, but I don't demand anything other than just a good game, because I want the writers to write what they think is best for the next step of Mass Effect. Because I have ideas on what I want, but I'm not going to be so terribly, how do you say, in a nice way, raging, I guess, if my ideas aren't implemented. because I think fundamentally the Mass Effect writers know a bit more about Mass Effect than I do and what they want to do. And I want each game to be their own unique thing that doesn't contradict each other, but at least builds on one another. And if you do this whole time travel thing, it's definitely going to destroy a lot of what the original trilogy was about, excluding Andromeda. Because this time travel thing is literally just a tool to get Shepard back, and I just don't get it. I really don't.
An interesting prospect, I'm not gonna lie, but in the end it could also remove a lot of the emotional impact because of how hard fought the victory over the Reapers was. Let's face it guys, time travel is probably not the greatest idea for a Mass Effect story. Trust me, I want Shepard back as much as any of you, and I wouldn't say no to Ryder meeting up with our legendary commander, but in that case,
which is
the
where
frozen...
I disagree with this guy. I don't want Shepard back. Let Shepard just live. Just let them do it. I don't really care if Shepard is dead in the next game. I just want Shepard to be done. Their story was finished. They concluded it. I don't want to open a book because you're going to have to then finish that book again, and you have the expectations of the previous book to go on as well. So that's a lot of issues that are being created for no real reason. Just let Shepard be who they are. I honestly don't get it. I don't get this as Shepard obsession, and I think it's better if Mass Effect moves on from Shepard.
Shepard/Frozen Normandy crew storyline is probably the better way to go about it.
Which I also disagree with the cryogenic one, because the thing is, to me, you're going to have to then justify how my Shepard does that, because my Shepard doesn't want to go into cryostasis and just like hang out. I don't want that. I really don't want that. Yet a lot of people seem like they want to do that, and I just don't get it. Again, let Shepard just die, have a new protagonist. I would prefer Ryder. I would prefer the continuation of Andromeda. But obviously, people don't want that. So if we're going to go back to the Milky Way, I'd rather than do a new protagonist instead of just Shepard. Because that really feels like, to me, it's just people ignoring everything that Mass Effect is about in favor of just one small thing, one small part of it, 1/10 of it, and saying, yeah, it's a Shepard show. Because to me, that just isn't the case. Shepard isn't the end-all, be-all. They're just part of it. And if you remove it, that doesn't mean Mass Effect is no longer Mass Effect. It just means one part of Mass Effect is not there. But there's still the other parts of Mass Effect.
There are 2 entire galaxies that are ripe for exploration, and it's such a huge universe with an insane amount of potential for future amazing stories. And I really don't think that the Mass Effect universe needs a time travel story at all. What I do think, though, is that a First Contact type storyline could be for the best for the next Mass Effect game. And yes, I do have another theory video brewing about that as well. So remember to stay tuned for that. And that's it for today. Remember to become a member if you want to support the channel.
Yeah, I think it's a good... He makes a lot of great videos. But I do think there are some issues, at least my issues with some of his opinions. Mostly just revolving around, like, it seems like he wants Shepards to be there no matter what. To me, I want what like is the natural next conclusion, and the natural next conclusion is 2 things. Do something in the Milky Way, and finish Andromeda. Andromeda obviously is somewhat finished, you could say. It has at least a open-ended story. It's still ended, but I do wish for it to conclude its lingering plot lines, at least in an additional game. I'm not asking for 3, I'm not asking for 2, I'm asking for like at least 1 more game to conclude Mass Effect Andromeda. And in the Milky Way, I don't mind going back to the Milky Way, because a lot of people seem like they're very teetering on the fact that, oh, the Milky Way, it's going to be so difficult to do it with all the choices and whatnot. Whatever. Just canonize choices. I don't care. I honestly don't really care if, for example, they canonize the Destroy ending. I don't necessarily mind that. It has the most potential for any new plots, because the Control ending is essentially the Reapers repair everything and society goes back to the way it was, and there's still plotlines you can do with that, but the Reapers are practically in control by Shepard. There's still some issues with the Control ending that could have some plotlines within it, like Shepard going evil, because since it's a super AI, it could come to the same conclusions as the Catalyst as well. And Synthesis is just like, from everything that we see, just a utopia. But to me, I think that Destroy ending being canon, I think is fine. I don't mind that. I'm not as like miffed about that as others. And I take that a step further as canonize the Geth and the Quarians living. Decanonize the fact that for some reason, the Destroy ending just killed ED and the Geth. Just decanonize that. I don't mind, because I think that is kind of a weird plot line, and it would be a lot better if they were just alive, instead of having this weird convoluted thing of like, okay, yeah, I mean, like, the Geth were destroyed, but not really. Like, okay, dude, so it was just meaningless, right? Like, okay, sure, just make it meaningless at the start and then just go from there. Cure the Genophage should be canon as well. I don't mind that as well. The Rachni Queen should be saved in Mass Effect 1. I think that should be canonized. I know, I'm terrible. And additionally, you should save the Rachni Queen in Mass Effect 3 as well. Additionally, because I don't mind. Because to me, I feel like a lot of these choices interrupt a lot of the narrative points of Mass Effect. And Dragon Age as well. Because you essentially make those places uninteractable. You can never hear about them. You can never see them. You can never play in those game spaces. You can only hear about them. You can only hear about, oh, the Krogan Genophage was cured. How cool. Okay, can we see it? No, because it's too difficult to have two game states, so you rather go in the, okay, so we're going to tell you about it, but we're not going to show you about it. Which, sure, whatever, but that's still an issue that I take up with. I don't think Mass Effect can just continue with pulling over player choices in the next Mass Effect game, because the fundamental issue is that you're going to have to either make a very, very small game with a very limited purview, because if you have anything that's interacting with galactic society, you're just screwing yourself in the foot. So you either have to canonize stuff, like those big choices I mentioned, and just continue from there. I don't mind that, because to me Mass Effect isn't the choices. Obviously, people will say, well, you said Mass Effect isn't about Shepard, it's not the end-all be-all. What about choices? What is Mass Effect to you? To me, Mass Effect is the characters, the choices that you can make, but it's not long-term consequences. It's more of like in-game consequences, where you can see the choices affect the game state that you're in, not necessarily beyond that. I like that. Additionally, I think it's also about the lore. I think it's about its gameplay, as many people don't necessarily think Mass Effect's gameplay is that unique. I do think Mass Effect's gameplay is its own identity, and I feel like that should be carried forward. And additionally, I think Mass Effect is also just about like synthetics versus organics, right? And I think that's also a very fundamental part of it as well. And it will continue to be a very fundamental part of it as well. It's about a lot of things. And I think, to me at least, I think a lot of people are now detrimentally, because my issues are not necessarily saying I want this to the detriment of everything's. I'm trying to be a bit more realistic. If the canonizing choices is a bit more detrimental to a lot of people, I don't think it should be done. But I think it should be done, because I think if it's not done, it'll be detrimental to other aspects of Mass Effect. You'll have to go up with a lot of convoluted stuff. But where a lot of people with, like, bring back Shepard for the next game, just bring them back, no matter what, it's a lot more detrimental, because it's now saying, screw the lore, screw the narrative, screw everything else, just get Shepard back. Which I think is very dangerous, to me at least. And I get people liking Shepard, I just don't think it's a really great idea. And this theory is really emblematic of that, because this theory's construction was based on the fact to get Shepard back. It's not about an interesting plotline that Mass Effect can bring up, it's just, this is how we can bring Shepard back. Time travel. Okay, thanks for that. This huge issue that so many people have with time travel stories, because their issue with time travel stories is that it's normally interjected into stories that have never needed time travel for no reason whatsoever. I just don't like it. This guy is pretty good. Again, I don't like all his opinions. He doesn't like Andromeda, which means he's objectively wrong, obviously. And yeah, I think it's fine. You should go watch him. The video will be in the description below. I wouldn't need to steal too much of his content. I just wanted to use it more as a springboard to talk about my issues and feelings about Mass Effect in general. I just think so many of these people who talk about Mass Effect don't really play Mass Effect, or don't even really care about Mass Effect as a whole. I care about Mass Effect as a complete whole. I love every single part of it. There are some things I can do without. I think canonizing choices is perfectly fine, as long as it's not like canonizing romances, or canonizing like saving small characters, you know? I think in like Mass Effect 1, right, if they canonized Shepard saving the Council, right, I think that would have gone a lot better. Because to me, at least, to me specifically, you can really feel the Council are a footnote in Mass Effect 2 and 3. Mass Effect 2 is somewhat making sense because they can't really help you in determinist systems. But in Mass Effect 3, it feels like they have no impact whatsoever. And that's terrible. That's really terrible that this choice caused the Council to just be a footnote. And I don't like that. I'd rather have it canonized and have an interesting narrative and story play out than just, okay, it's up to the player's choice and we're going to make this very minimal effort sort of thing where it doesn't really matter, but it somewhat matters type of thing. So yeah. Again, if you want to watch the guy's videos, he's right there, MrHulthen. It'll be in the description below. And I hope you enjoyed it. I definitely don't necessarily think the guy's too bad. I think he comes up with really good theories, and he's very respectful for a lot of different fans, you know. Obviously, he is wrong on Andromeda, objectively. Yeah, go check him out. He's pretty good. And have a nice day.